I'm Alex.
And I'm Shane.
And this is Race Per Minute.
Hello and welcome back to our F1 2022 launch reaction series. And today we're going to be talking about the highly anticipated and what some call the favourites for the 2022 season, the Ferrari launch. In this little episode,
Who's calling them that?
A lot of people. F1 Twitter, don't you know? And Reddit. Everyone's thinking
People
that
on
Ferrari,
Twitter and
they
Reddit.
know that
Wow.
they know the best, don't you know? And thank you so much for interrupting my introduction. I do apologise, everyone.
Pleasure.
But in today's little podcast, we'll cover the launch presentation itself, any technical information we have discovered or have found out during the launch or post-launch, and then we'll talk about that all-important livery, because of course it's the only reason we're here is to get our thoughts and opinions on that slightly new livery. And here we are, 6 launches into the season, and wow, we've got a completely different design philosophy all over again. I'm kind of getting really excited moving forward, but should we talk about the launch itself first, the whole presentation?
Yeah, we had a very, very dramatic intro for the drivers. Very, very hyped up music indeed. Sort of epic trailer music is basically what it seemed like. We had this intro for the drivers revealing their new race suits, which look fabulous. I'm really liking the yellow. Fabulous, yes. I'm really liking the yellow stripe for Carlos and the white stripe for Charles, because then you have the yellow stripe for Carlos, which makes the Spanish flag red, yellow, red. And then you get Charles as red and then white to make the Monegasque flag.
I hadn't even noticed that.
Like
I've just flipped up on just flipped Twitter up, and how did I not notice that?
It's good, that, isn't it? It's a nice little touch, and the suits themselves looked really good, so that was a nice little reveal.
They do look smart.
And then the music, being incredibly epic, only got even more over the top, and it was like, sort of world-ending music, and it was accompanying Mattia Binotto standing rather awkwardly in front of a green screen, like a sort of Twitch streamer or something.
Yeah.
He's just like awkwardly stood there, and the music's like dun 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 dun. Yep, Mattia Binotto, here he is. He's come to talk about the F1-75. That's what this car is called, isn't it? Because of 75 years of Ferrari and 75 years of making it up as they go along, as it comes to car names and car numbers. So they're keeping the tradition alive there. What did you think of the launch program from Ferrari? It was fairly short and sweet, wasn't it?
Yeah, I quite like these. It was a 13-minute video from start to finish after you get past that minute of a countdown, which every team seems to do now. The hype before the hype. But I quite enjoyed it. It was short, it was sweet, very dramatic. I felt like I was in the cinema and I was watching trailers for the next Tomb Raider film or James Bond film. It was really, really powerful kind of music. And like you said, Mattia, is it Mattia? Yeah, Mattia was standing there, and at a quick glance, I was like, doesn't quite sit right when the drivers came on. Everything looks a little bit superimposed, but the drivers got away with it, and then it flipped onto Binotto's face and his hair, and then I could clearly see that this whole thing was a green screen, and actually they're just standing in front of it. I was like, that's a shame, because they were getting away with it momentarily, and then his frizzy hair nature gave it all away, which is a shame. But short, sweet, a little bit in Italian, of course. They always do that. I completely forgot about it as I flipped on the old YouTube, and I thought I'll just make some notes on my phone as I listened to it. And then I realized it was in Italian, so I'd have to read it as I'd made notes on my phone. So I found myself pausing it every so often. But then it switched over to good old English when the drivers came on stage. I know they know a little bit of Italian themselves, but probably not enough to present the new car in the rightful way.
I think they both speak Italian. I think.
Oh, really?
Carlos and Charles. I think so. Yeah.
Maybe they just did it because of the engagement. Then maybe they knew where the demographic was coming from, and English is the most common language in the world. So there we have it. But yeah, as for the launch itself, 30 minutes, short, sweet. Yeah, I quite enjoyed it.
Yeah, I do have to say that I think there are probably some listeners that might take issue with you saying English is the most common language in the world. I'm pretty sure Mandarin is the most common language in the world.
It's the most modern language in the world, isn't it? Isn't it the most?
It's the lingua franca of the internet, I suppose.
Okay.
And
So
English
I
is
do
probably
apologise
spoken
if
in more
I've-
countries than anywhere else, but
Okay.
I don't think
Maybe
it's the
that's
most
where-
common language.
Maybe that's where I'm getting my statistics confused, and I should just stick to Formula One instead of making it up as I go along. So I do apologise if I've offended anyone. But it moved to English.
But getting back to the, how dare you suggest another language is more popular?
Cut. We'll have to do the whole thing again.
Let's go back to this launch then. So we kind of had the, Matty introduced the drivers. He kind of sings their praises a little bit and talks about their involvement in the team. That was nice as well. Similar to Williams, where it's like, why have you picked these kind of drivers? It's always nice to hear that, really, and to get a kind of roundup. And it encourages, I like to see the team principals and various other stuff kind of being quite forthright about the drivers to their faces, because it reinforces the strength of their relationship in a way. When you look at the relation between the drivers, because they know they need to be honest and straightforward. So that was good. And then the music was kind of continuing underneath all the talking, which was a little bit odd. It kind of created a bit of a stuffy tone, but it wasn't so bad. But then they did something that was really neat that no other team has done that I really liked. And that's that they actually walked around the car and talked about it.
Yeah.
And all the little bits whilst it was there in front of them. And I rather liked that. I mean, I guess McLaren sort of did that. They were stood next to the car, but they were actually sort of looking at it and pointing to bits and walking around it. I thought that was a really nice touch with the car there. And then it closed up with a sort of final message for the Tifosi, a sort of, trust us, we've got it right this time. Ferrari master plan, we promise this time, pinky promise. Definitely.
But I quite liked, they mentioned about how their direction has slightly changed since 2019, and they've had some hardship. They weren't completely oblivious to the fact that they've had a couple of hard years. I like the fact that they touched on it, and they, still trust in Ferrari and Forza Ferrari because they know what they're doing. But I like the bit that they acknowledge that they've had a rough ride, and actually they're striving to be better.
And yeah, it's kind of part of their new era of the regulations. Also gives Ferrari a chance to relaunch as championship contenders. That is obviously their game. I mean, they were pretty forthright about that being their goal. Like, Ferrari is expected to always be fighting for wins and championships. It's just the default state for the team, really. Anything other than that is unacceptable. So fair dues for having expectations that high. They generally do a good job of keeping hold of them, but it's just the last few years where they've struggled. So hopefully this will be the time where they start to fight again. Well, I say that I don't personally want that. I want Ferrari v McLaren is very much back on the cards. So I want them to do well, but not be as good as McLaren. I'll be happy with that.
Not to do too well.
But yeah, it was like we say, short and sweet on the launch, nothing too complicated. Keeping it very simple, and then revealed the car. So, should we talk about this technical side of this car then? Because this is another unusual design, another bit in it where you're looking at it going, what is going on there?
So very different to what we've seen over the last week. And we've seen some crazy design concept. We've seen small side pods. We've seen large and deep side pods as well. We've seen side pods with tiny intakes and side pods with huge intakes. We've also seen what people are now calling the gills. And what car was that on? What was it? The Aston Martin?
First one was the Aston, yeah.
It was the Aston Martin. And we've seen a return of this gills concept, but that is overshadowed by this uniquely designed side pod. And I never thought in a million years would see anything like this. When I saw the pictures of it, and they weren't, let's just point this out, when they were doing the promo video, they weren't shying away from it at all. They were putting the camera lens right down the side of the car, showing exactly what they'd done. And this is radical. This is brave, and I love the way it looks. But how would you describe it, Alex, for our audio listeners who haven't seen the car?
The side pods, the side pods kind of have the usual sort of jutting out to the side, but they're very flat on the side themselves, because between the edge of the side pods and the engine cover, there is this big dip that goes under. It's like a channel that I assume is meant to direct air downwards and towards and out the back of the rear wing, is what it looks like. It looks like it sort of channels the air from the sides through the background, the sort of Coke bottle bit, and then out the rear wing. And it's just this huge sort of, channel that looks like it will collect rainwater or something. I mean,
yes.
It sort of looks a bit unusual like that. I'm sure it won't, but it was it's a very interesting design. And when you look at it, when you look at how radical it is, as well as what is going on with the nose, which is quite different as well, it seems to, assuming again that this is all final stuff, we did see what appeared to be a real car.
Yeah.
The nose is very different as well, very different to the show cars even. So it's an odd one that I'm looking at this and I'm thinking they've either absolutely nailed it and found some secret source, or
they are so
could
far
be
off the pace.
2014 all over again.
I mean, I love the way it looks. It's just
on a sort of design level.
Yeah, I forget the livery. We're not even talking about the livery at the moment, but like the way it looks and like design, I think it looks incredible. I love the flow. I love the angles. I love the curves. It's something which, well, I'd never imagined this on a Formula One car. I would have never thought this up. So whoever's created this idea, I really hope it works out for you, because this is one of the best looking like design vehicles we've ever had. And you've already mentioned about the front wing on the nose, so it's only fair that we move on to that. And I've noticed that on the end of the wing, you've got these end plates, but they've got this bit sticking out as well, which I don't think we've seen on any other car this year. It's like an additional little flap, but it's horizontal instead of it's just horizontal. It just extends past the end plate, which is pretty cool. And then there's that nose, which is just completely different to what we've seen. I think it has a little hole down the bottom of it towards the end, underneath the Ferrari logo. It looks like it has a hole there to let the air through. And I don't know, there's clearly a reason as to why that happens. But again, the nose itself is quite long. You can see all the various sponsors on it, but it's a really long nose with quite a point and a hole down the bottom.
And it sort of juts out slightly at the front, doesn't it? Rather than there being a sort of smooth arrow-like transition to the front of the nose, it has this sort of bump to the front of the nose. And the first pane is connected to the nose as well, which is quite unusual, is less common as we've seen in the cars so far. And then you have the actual intakes themselves on the side pods, these sort of narrow, almost slits. They're sort of so narrow. And then the triangular intake at the top, which is familiar from last year. So obviously they've kept a similar sort of cooling solution there, but with now these vents alongside the edges of the engine cover, which presumably would come down to the way that they've worked on their power unit. They talked a little bit about this in the launch and the effort that had gone into that and the gearbox and all the rest of it. So Ferrari hoping to continue the progress that they've made on their engine. They obviously did some of that with some of the electrical side of it last season. So yeah, hoping to still make progress there. And that's showing in the way they've changed their cooling system as well in reaction to the regulations. So fascinating looking design. Be very, very interesting to see if it works, if it gets copied by anybody else. I mean, well, I guess I can barely wait. I can barely wait to see all these cars. I feel like it's such a treat we've got this season. The way these cars look and all the different designs and all the different liveries that we've seen. I really think it's just going to be such a treat to see all these cars on the grid together. Looking forward to it.
What we've got now is, and we're only on the 6th launch of the season so far. This is
number 7, isn't it?
Is it
Ferrari?
6 or 7? Let me have a quick look on my notes.
Because we've got Mercedes, Alpine, and Alfa Romeo to go. So
yes, we do. So this is number 7, but we've seen like 5 strong design philosophies. And I'm just wondering, with all these pictures have been taken, all these renders have been done, I wonder how they'll compare to the first practice session in March. Because like you said, some of these teams have hit the nail on the head and will be super fast and super efficient and super reliable, and other teams might be facing some problems. So we'll be seeing a bit of a design shift from now. Preseason testing starts next week for the first week, the private one. I wonder how much will change between the first and the second, and then the second and then the first practice session of the year. It's gonna be interesting. But of course, we've got all these photos now of what the cars did look like. So it'll be very interesting to see who's got it right and who hasn't. But
so then let's talk about that livery then.
Let's talk about that livery. Alex, let's just go straight to you, because you've pinned this on me a couple of times in this like mini series. You've asked me what I think about the livery, but I'm going to go straight to you. What's your thoughts on the F1-75?
Yeah, this is absolutely gorgeous. This car.
So glad you agree.
I'm kind of annoyed at how good it looks. I think I prefer it over the Aston, you know.
Yep.
I think I like this more than the Aston. And I mentioned in the last episode, I hoped it would have those like 90s, 80s, 90s kind of vibes with the black wings. That's exactly what they've gone for, like as teased by the team kit that we saw earlier. And it just looks absolutely fabulous. I love the new shade of red, darker, meaner, more aggressive looking Ferrari. And then a nice touch with the Italian flag at the edge on the edge of the engine cover. Numbers nice and readable. Sponsors very nicely placed. It's just fabulous. I think this looks really, really good, and it might be my favorite so far, I think, on initial impressions.
Obviously, we've not seen this on track, unlike other cars. And the Aston Martin looked incredible on track. But this, personally, is another step higher, is another step better. The Aston Martin looked great. This looks gorgeous. Like, it just looks incredible. It's I think, easily the best looking car so far. I'm just going to reiterate everything you said. That darker red, it makes it look vintage. Fresh, it makes it look bold. I love the black, but there's not too much black. It's not too busy. They've kept it less black and it's black and red, but they've done such a good job of it. It's not busy at all. They've put the colours in the right place. I love the faded black at the top with the sponsor in the middle. As for the sponsors, I mean, we don't talk about sponsors very much, apart from the lack of them on some of the lower tier teams. But Ferrari have a lot of sponsors on that car, and they've still made it look incredible. I love it. I think it's such a great looking car, coupled with the design of the car as well. It just looks fierce. And I tell you what, we're McLaren fans through and through. But tell you what, the McLaren livery looks rubbish compared to this Ferrari. And I hate to say,
I wouldn't say it looks rubbish. No, I wouldn't say that.
I'm saying it, and I'm a McLaren fan, but I wasn't a massive fan of their livery. I'm still trying to figure it out myself. But this, first impressions, I was sold instantly. And I'm a bit like you. I'm annoyed at how good this car looks, because, wow, this car's going to look incredible going around the track. I've no doubt about it.
Well, seeing as you've made the comparison, I think they are obviously very, very different. I think looking at them now together, I'd say that the McLaren is quite fun as a livery. It's got a kind of playfulness to it in how bold and luminescent it is. And then in comparison, the Ferrari looks mean and aggressive and dead serious. And maybe that is, indicative of the very different attitudes at the
maybe
sort of work culture at the teams. They're very, very different approaches to how you make a car look. Like you would not describe the McLaren as a mean-looking car because it's bright orange and light blue, and it's sort of, it's just its initial impression is not like, yeah, that's really sort of like a sort of angry-looking car that's ready to go for it. Like, that's not to say anything about how the car will actually perform, obviously, because we don't know. But with the Ferrari, it has that sort of visual, has that kind of aesthetic, if you like.
It's almost
it jumps out you as aggressive.
It's almost like the McLaren is good and the Ferrari is evil. It's kind of got like it's that aggressive look against it. McLaren is clean, it's bright, it's colourful. It's like this kind of family-orientated car. It's like a really massive family-orientated kind of like atmosphere. And the Ferrari just come out suited and booted. We're like, right, we're not messing about. This is business, and we're here to win, and we don't care what we have to do to win, which is very, very Ferrari-esque. But
yeah,
damn.
And you mentioning all those sponsors as well reminds me of when I was about a teenager, I think it was. Somebody gave me a model, an F1 model to make. You know those like Airfix kits.
Yes, yeah.
They gave me a Ferrari one, and at the time, I think at the time I was still supporting Jordan, so I was kind of hoping that they would get me something else. But I got this Ferrari one, so I made this kit. And I remember I got out, you have to do all the transfers for all the little bits that go on it that you don't paint on. I got the one that had the sponsors on it, and it was like an A4 sheet of paper that this big. And it took forever to put all the sponsors on it. It reminds me of that, because there's just so many tiny little sponsors that go in on this little model car. And that kind of reminds me of this, because like you say, there are a lot of sponsors on that car. Who wouldn't want to sponsor Ferrari, I suppose? It must be a good opportunity.
I'm really glad you mentioned that, because, well, I think I've mentioned before in previous years how maybe sometimes the Williams has looked a bit busy with sponsors because they've just taken on anything they could. And at one point, the McLaren, moving from the Honda era, did have a lot of sponsors because they'd lost that, they'd lost a lot of reputation throughout the last couple of years due to their performance. And it almost looked a little bit, and I don't want to say this, but it looked a little bit desperate. It was like, let's just try and squeeze on as many sponsors as possible because the money means prizes at the end of the day. Do you know what I mean? Money means points, and points mean prizes, and prizes mean more money. But the Ferrari's got this prestige kind of, actually, we've got a lot of sponsors, but we kind of vet every single one. And it just looks like it just looks great. It really
Making
does.
that look tasteful is hard.
Yeah, and they've done
really
such
hard.
a good job. They really have. And there's, like you said, there's a lot of sponsors on there. It is busy, but it doesn't look rushed and it doesn't look desperate. I should imagine it'll be quite opposite to the Mercedes launch because Mercedes have very few sponsors because they've got big sponsorship deals. And in fact, I think they've lost Boss in the last year, but we'll talk about that tomorrow. But this looks prestige. It looks clean. It just looks amazing. It really does.
Yeah, big fan of this livery, and now just comes the time to see it on track. I think they're going to be at their test track pretty soon. So hopefully we'll get to see some images then. Otherwise, we'll just have to wait till testing. There it is then, the F1-75. I almost called it the SF-75, but that would make far too much sense. So do send us your thoughts or questions on this car and Ferrari in the new season and their launch. You can get in contact with us at RacePerMinute on Twitter. You can get in touch at RacePerMinute.com on the contact page there. Or if you're watching this on YouTube, then you can comment below. And if you enjoyed this episode, then do give us a rating, thumbs up, a like, all that sort of stuff. And if you like this episode and like what we do in general, then please consider subscribing where it is you're getting us and get every episode straight into your inbox. And if you really want to support the show, then the best way to do that is to go to patreon.com/RacePerMinute. And you can donate as little as £1 a month to keep the quality content coming. Get your hands on some lovely rewards, name at the front of the video, like Nathan, our race engineer. So, that's how you can get in touch and how you can support the show. Shane, next we have Mercedes.
Yes, at the time of recording, Mercedes is tomorrow. I'm looking
Is it going
forward
to be silver or is it going to be black?
I don't know. I'm going to say black. I think they're keeping the black. Their suits,
I think it's going to be black as well.
Well, from what we've seen at the moment with their suits, they're going to stay with the black livery, which I do not mind because I think it looks incredible. It looks mean, just like the Ferrari. I'm really looking forward to their launch because hopefully it'll be live. I think it will be. Usually the Mercedes is live if it hasn't been leaked beforehand. And it'll be good to see Lewis as well because I think obviously he's been quite quiet on social media since coming back to social media. And we've seen a couple of photos of him and George working together, just having a bit of a chit-chat in some promotional videos. But as far as I'm concerned, according to the Mercedes press, Lewis is going to be there at the launch. It's going to be live. So it'd be good to see. Just be good to see Lewis and see him back in around a car doing what he does best. Are you looking forward to it? What's your standout? What are you looking forward to the most?
I really liked Mercedes' launch last year because they had I can't remember who it was. No, I can't remember who it was. But they had a presenter. They had like a sort of Welsh TV presenter doing the questions. But you got the sense that they had intentionally done it so that Toto hadn't heard the questions beforehand, or that they were actually quite difficult questions and they were being deliberately a bit pointed. Now, maybe they did script the whole thing and they're just very good at making it seem that way. That may be the case, but it just came across as quite a nice, straightforward, honest way of going about it and just being quite asking some pointed questions at the launch, which I rather like. I don't like it when it's too much of a puff piece. I like to see a little bit of recognizing the work that needs to be done still. And Mercedes, if any team knows what it takes to be at the top and stay at the top, then it's certainly Mercedes in recent years. So I think it'll be a good one. Looking forward to it. Looking forward to the car as well.
Absolutely. I can't wait.